All right, back in business, not Wednesday. The rare, extremely rare Tuesday PGA DFS show here at Stochastic, and there's a reason for that. A very simple reason is that the golf locks tomorrow. So if we did the show tomorrow, it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. That's the kind of logic you're only going to get here, but we're ready to talk Farmers Insurance Open. We're going to have a good time. We're going to go through some tools, build some winning lineups, and get you all the information you need on Ben Rez. I am joined by the man who must be feeling pretty good from the NBA hit last night. Congratulations. Told you before the show. I'll tell you on the air. Very, very good stuff. I got to sweat the tail end of that. You must be feeling good. Let's carry that momentum into the PGA streets.
Yeah, I would love to. This is obviously another awesome week, another golf course. Well, golf courses plural that I'm familiar with that I've played, so that's enjoyable. But yeah, it's always easier to start off your year to have a big hit in January. Ended up having a really nice sweat there. I gotta say, Kevin Durant, that guy is an absolute legend. Last week, I go to the game, watch them come back from 22 down, and then yesterday, he stops overtime from happening, which would have surely had Kobe White lineups passing me at the very end there, but ended up having a chop up top there for right around 30K, and was a fantastic little night for sure.
Good stuff. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, now the trick, just run it up in PGA. Famous last words.
Yeah,
no problems. I mean, we start every show like
Buddy,
two parts.
Okay. The
How
silence
good were those
hurt
hot
me.
takes, though? How good were the hot takes? Come
Fire.
on now.
Plus 340, and we'll say you had the top professional in the event.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I should have just done a minor asterisk of people that really exist that he would win the tournament, but the people from the actual clouds now win. It's just incredible. I mean, the whole thing was ridiculous on so many levels, but if I take all emotion out of it, the stones to get up and down on 18, I was positive that was going to a playoff.
Yeah, it was not something that you see from a 20-year-old. And I think this is something that I've been very, very adamant about since we started doing shows, is that kids these days are different than kids of days of past. There's a couple of reasons for it. One, the equipment is way better. The margins that you have, unless you play golf, you don't understand. Jordan Klein even probably understands this for sure. He's got a nice, sweet swinger over there, but the equipment makes it easier to not fail with a driver. And when you have the driver be the straightest, easiest to hit club in your bag, the biggest club head, it takes a lot of pressure off of you on tee shots that would otherwise be very, very difficult coming down the end of the stretch. The other thing is that all of these kids start when they're 8, 9, 10. Golf becomes something that they travel for. They're kind of touring professionals as is. And the kid wins a U.S. Amateur, gets a sponsor's exemption. We know Nick Dunlap was an absolute stud, but there's no point in bringing him up because relative to PGA players, it's just so hard to know what that known quantity is. But you see it with Thagala, you see it with all these kids coming up who are number one amateurs. They all have it right from the get-go. So obviously, I'm with you. I didn't think that he was going to get it up and down in the moment, and was obviously cheering for you because I think you said that we may never be able to do shows again here if you finish second the rest of the year.
Yeah, and here I am. No, it was a hell of a run. And, listen, when you bet outrights, all you can ask for is a chance. And we've had that last couple of weeks, and we're going to have it this week because we're going to get into it. I don't have anything else from the Amex. It's a birdie fest. It's a joke. It's a 3-course rotation. You quickly last week identified that mentality of you need to be in go mode all 4 rounds. Yep. You're not going to be able to grind it. And I think we saw that come to fruition.
Yep. And had a Sam Burns take it myself. So he sunk my hopes on 17, which was like, all right, I felt better about it. That is a very small green. You go play it in person at PGA West. It is a lot smaller than what I believe. I've never played TPC Sawgrass, but number 17, I think, is a much larger surface area than what you've got there. And you're hitting about the same club, maybe a little bit longer than you do most of the time over at number 17 at TPC. So it is a visually intimidating shot. The fact that he makes one bad swing, I think people kind of overreact to that. Pressure does a lot of weird things. But again, Dunlap was able to hit a human in the crowd, go way right, bail out, and get up and down. He thought he had a 2-shot lead. I don't know if you heard the interview afterwards, but he had absolutely no idea that it was only 1 shot at that point. So it was a crazy sweat. I'm hoping, though, my guy, you're going to cash one of these sooner rather than later. Let's make it sooner. That'd be fun.
Let's make it right now. Let's do it. Let's get into it. I see chat. I see all our regulars, all our people. We appreciate you. You guys know the drill. If you want to support us, hit the like button right off the bat. let's build it up and let's get into this. So this isn't a 3-course rotation. This is a 2-course rotation, but really I always treat this, and I want to hear your thoughts. You get the North course and you get a chance to take advantage, but you're playing Torrey South. You're playing it 3 times. It's a big, long golf course. Everyone on this show except me has been on the grounds. It sounds like you both know what's going on. Even Jordan Klein, he's been there. Now I hear they're getting pounded with rain. So I want to talk about that. And I just want to talk about your impressions because you have firsthand knowledge of what it takes to tackle these type of courses.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've played the North a bunch. I've played the South twice, and it is a track that there are some brutal par 4s that you're going to be playing on the South course specifically. The North is a lot shorter. There's some gettable par 5s there. And obviously 18, we know that that's pretty gettable. Both par 5s on the back are pretty gettable there over at the South course as well. But overall, this is just so demanding off the tee. And that's the first thing that really stands out this week compared to anything that we've had so far. You had you had these wide open fields at Kapalua. You then go to the Sony. It gets a little bit tighter, but overall, people don't need to hit fairways there because the rough isn't very penal. The rough is a killer. Kikuya will kill you in a lot of these spots. And obviously, we're talking POA on the greens. We're talking some of this crazy type bumps that you get. It's a lot harder to make some of the short putts. They're not a given the way that they are for a lot of PGA Tour guys. Putts from 6 to 8 feet. You know, you look at some of the make percentages, it's about 5-6% less over at the South course where we have all of that data at compared to other PGA Tour stops. So you try to make your hay over at the North. For the first 2 days, if you're playing Showdown, you just play a lot of guys who are playing the North course because it's exponentially easier. If you want to mix in a stud at the South course or 2, I have no issue with it. But just get ready for a lot of ball strikers. So get ready for a different week than we've had here in weeks past because, you know, it might have been just absolute birdie fest here in days of yore. That is not what you are going to be running into with 3 rounds at the South course.
No doubt about it. So I just want to pass it right back to you then. What does that mean for skills? Like, do you look to bogey avoidance, the ability, you know, strokes gained around the green, things that are more reserved for majors, things that are more reserved for grinding? Are those factors and skills that we get into this week that maybe weren't on the top of our list for the past couple weeks?
Absolutely. I think what happens is that you're driving, like there's guys like Minwoo Lee who have utility last week because they're good at birdie fest, but then he has extra utility this week too because the off the tee game is strong and the around the green game is strong. I think the one difference for me this week compared to other weeks, and you know, obviously there's a lot of amazing iron players who have won this event here, but I think strokes gained approach just doesn't carry as much weight as what it has in weeks past. Correct me if I'm wrong or if that's not something you're looking at, but I definitely want strong off the tee, I guess ball striking all around types, but if they can pair some around the green game with it, the putting, these are surfaces that kind of level the playing field because even good putters are going to get strange bounces on these greens. You're going to have things that are just imperfect. And sometimes that drives professional golfers mad. But personally, I love it because it just becomes, well, golf isn't supposed to be fair. Nobody said golf is supposed to be fair. And I think for me, it's fun to watch tour players have par still matter. And that's something that exists at the South course that doesn't really exist in anything else until, you know, there's times depending on how they set up TPC Scottsdale and depending on how the crowds are feeling on 16, 17, where you could make some numbers and things are getting problematic. But like for the most part, this is our first event that feels like a real golf course that's going to be challenging and getting up and down. You're going to see a lot more of that rather than just like, hey, you've got continuous 10 footers for birdie every freaking hole.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I do think, and the thing that's always tricky about strokes gained approach, it always is important. It may not be the premier thing, but you always want your guys to stripe it if they can and give themselves, but you can get around this course differently. I do think off the tee is very important, not just spray and pray, far from it. You better be able to do something. You can keep it straight and you'll be fine. You can obviously get there with distance and you'll be okay, but you can't have neither, in my opinion. I don't really have anything else to say though. I do think that with the soft conditions, we could see some people take advantage. I don't care where my guy starts. Do you have any, that's the last thing I wanted to ask you. Do you prefer north, south, 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 or do you care?
I don't care very much. If I were playing it myself, I would care about wanting to play north first and just try to get a low number out there. And then it's always nice. I said this about, you know, the South course guys, like it's nice to see the same golf course continuously. Like you don't want to have to play the rotation where like last week you're playing the South course, first, and then you're playing it the last day. That's a little bit jarring to me. Like, I would always prefer to play South Course back-to-back days, in that capacity on the Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So yeah, 3 days in a row that I would prefer to play that there. But yeah, the Stadium Course last week, back-to-back days there, that's great. And obviously the North Course, it's such a gettable side compared to other spots. Now, they've made it more difficult over the years. They've done some revamping to it. It's not as easy as it once was. I've played that, 7-8 years ago, and then played it about 2 years ago during COVID. And there are some very pronounced differences. Just they've lengthened it a little bit. They've definitely made it a little bit more challenging with some of the green complexes, but overall far more gettable, far shorter, about 500 and change shorter than what you're looking at for the South Course. The South Course is just a beast. Nearly 7,800 yards at sea level. Buckle up, friends. It's going to be fun.
Let's get into it. Let's talk about the top tier. We're going to pull up the sims as well throughout the show and start highlighting some of the tools, because we've already seen, it's only been a couple weeks, seen some good scores. And obviously we believe in these tools. I know you do. Saw the tweet last night in the NBA. It's the same concept. But we've got Xander, and we've got Cantlay, Morikawa, Max Homa, Sungjae. That's the top 5. 4 of them are in the 10K range. A couple of them are California guys. They either went to college, San Diego State, some of those type of things. When you're looking at the top, you see some of these guys. Cantlay grades out pretty well. Where were you drawn in terms of maybe your first click?
Yeah, I think it's hard to get away from a little bit of Xander this week. I think I can actually get away from a little bit of Cantlay more, which seems weird because I don't think that that's the sentiment across the industry. Last night couldn't sleep. I was just so wired. So I just kind of listened and watched absolutely everything across the industry. And feels like there's a lot of Cantlay love, and I get it. I mean, obviously, he's just a Southern Cal kid too, and UCLA kid that has familiarity here. But Xander Schauffele going back to San Diego, and he's just an absolute stud when it comes to Southern California golf as well. I don't know what it is, but like the consistency that he's had in a lot of these events. I mean, third last week, nice to see the form just ramped up right away there. I think the off the tee game where he's been positive in 3 that we have strokes gain data for continuously going back to, the summer, basically. I mean, you just know that he's coming in form. You know that this is an area he has tons of familiarity with, more so even than Cantlay. So I think between the two of them up top, I'm getting there. But I will say, I'm underweight to them because I don't know how you don't look at Collin Morikawa on a week like this and not get a little bit excited, because I think the off the tee game, I'm not going to call it underrated. Everybody talks about how good of an iron player he is. He absolutely is. 6th in strokes gained data over his last 50 rounds, last 24 rounds, any sample size you're using, basically. He's 8th off the tee, and he has awesome course history here. So I'm finding myself starting a lot of builds with Morikawa and then Max Homa, just like a de facto Southern Cal guy. But who do you like the most up here at 10K?
Yeah, I mean, certainly Morikawa was the guy that I actually put on the betting card. I know it's not a great number.
Oh, wow.
But
Okay.
Yeah, I got him at 12, and I was happy with that. I was willing to take the plunge. We know what he can do. Obviously, he knows his way around this course. He was 3rd last year, ball striking extraordinaire. Poa, he's another one. Like, does he have a preferred surface? Yeah, it's probably Poa. He doesn't mean he's an elite putter there, but it's better than Bermuda. So I do like that. Cantlay, just looking at it, I made an initial run. I'm getting a decent amount of him in the Sims. I'm fine with that. I don't think I'm jamming him by any stretch. The guy that may get squeezed for me, and it's scary, is Xander. And again, you can't play everyone. I may have him in the pool for sure. But to me, I have Morikawa and Cantlay ahead of Xander this week.
Yep, and we got pretty flat leverage here going towards Cantlay. The one thing I want to point out, and this is something that I talked with our CEO, Tom, one of the best DFS players that exists on the earth, been scorching hot in MMA and everything else here recently. But one thing you're going to notice in PGA is your average simulated ROI is going to be a little bit lower on those type players than you're going to find in the NBA streets and the MLB streets, because it's just harder to find those edges. So you have to do it by combining skill sets like you talk about, combining tee time waves, combining other things that can really be like, oh, this player is getting a little bit underrated. Like Cantlay is that guy, I think, who's maybe a little bit underrated right now, but I gotta say, he is getting steamed everywhere that I'm looking at. I mean, he has been discussed more so than I would say Xander. So I guess for me, it's just a little bit freaky knowing that I could get my preferred guy at Xander and a guy who we have a higher projected for what that's worth here. It's going to be kind of a coin flip situation between the two, but Left to my own devices, I think I prefer Xander. Like, if you just were able to go straight up head to head, if it's an even money head to head, who do you pick between Schauffele and Cantlay?
Yeah, that's where it gets super tricky. I think I would give the edge to Xander. But that's what I love about these tools is that you mentioned it. Like in the NBA, you have a starting point guard that sprains an ankle and some guy comes in and he's the min, the value,
Smash.
the ROI, it's gigantic. But in golf, it doesn't really work like that. There's not really mispricing to that extent. So you're talking about very small margins. You're talking about ownership factoring in skill sets, waves, little things that in that particular lineup can make the difference. So that's what I love about this. And there's just so many ways to construct. We've talked about this big four: Sungjae, Aberg, Jason Day. As we work down to the top, it's the bottom of the top tier. Tony Finau, Min Woo. These are the 9K options, and some of them grade out pretty well. Aberg's not getting a lot of love, and I'm good with that. So I don't think I really want to target him here. Who was your next kind of tier that stuck out to you?
I guess my camera kind of zoomed in on me there. I don't know what happened. Going on. It just wanted me to be all beautiful and stuff there, Jordan Klein. We are back. But anyway, I am... Oh, why is it doing that? I don't even know.
It's got a mind of its own.
It's like trying to capture me in my prettiest light. Paint me like one of your French girls, Jack.
There it is. Paul Barjan references early in the show.
All right, we're going to get this thing off and we're just going to go old school with it. But as I look at the board here for the next grouping, is this the buyback for Ludwig? Are we going to play him for the first time all year this week? He has no course history here. He has pretty much the entire skill set that you want for it. Just hits that nice, easy cut off the tee, just kind of consistent. Feels like he's going to be a ball striker, and like 9,700 is way overpriced again, but like something tells me we're going to be able to get him in an ownership that maybe makes him appealing up here. I wanted to ask you about him first out of this range, because again, didn't play him at any of these birdie fests over in Hawaii. Was very happy to be off of him there. I think this is a buy. I don't know why. He has the smallest top 6 percentage in the top golfers tool by a mile, but he's also going to have the lowest ownership in this range by a mile, other than maybe Jason Day, who has immaculate course history. But like, are we playing Ludwig?
So that's where I think, again, it's super important to put context to it, because I don't like him in this range. I don't think he grades out in this range. But as the sims and we get the information, the ownership, maybe there is some utility to that. I'm still going to say outside looking in for me, more of an opportunity cost. I like Finau. I think Min-Woo Lee is an interesting buy. I was not on him at all last week, and I didn't get burned by it. It was fine. But I still believe he's someone that has a lot of opportunity there. I guess for me, is there a guy in the 9K range that you're not super keen on? Let me ask you
I think that's way. Yeah, that's probably the other thing. I mean, we're getting an ownership discount on a lot of these guys. I will say is this will probably be the first week I don't play Eric Cole.
Okay.
He's 9K. He's pulling 20% ownership. His off the tee game is by far the weakest part of it. And he's not a short hitter off the tee by any means. I mean, he's averaging right around 297 here, which doesn't tell you a whole hell of a lot. It's going to be wet. It's going to be soggy. It's going to be a deal. But like, that is by far his weakest part of his golf game. Everything else across the board has been awesome. And I've been just clicking his name repeatedly. I haven't really been that disappointed. Last week, obviously could have been a lot better. And there's some opportunity cost with some of the other guys up there, like Justin Thomas, who I had none of. So there is that. But like, I think just 98 strokes gained off the tee here amongst this field. I mean, that's over a 50-round sample size. That is a little bit problematic to me. And I think I just want to get to all the Min-Woo Lee. I think Min-Woo Lee is going to be somebody that I just play a ton here. And again, Eric Cole is literally at the top of my model. And as soon as I say that, I know for a fact that I'm not going to be playing him in single entry. And I'm probably going to be massively underweight or maybe have next to none, just because I expect him to be the comfortable click here. And I don't think his skill set fits this specific golf course. He is going to be good at difficult golf courses. His home course is freaking Bay Hill, for the love of God. But like, that is a completely different beast than what we got this week. And off the tee being as premium as what it is, I think I'm just going to hit eject.
Fair enough. I get it. Again, this is always what I love about this. Early season golf, everyone, because we have limited data, is relying on recent form, probably more than they should be. But the form of what you do at like Amex or Sony or even Sentry is so different than what you're going to see at Torrey South. And that is something I think we have to factor in. We did have a question about fatigue if guys have played going into a short week. early in the season, I don't worry about that. I think everyone is so fresh that it's not as big a deal than if you've played like 5 straight weeks leading into the FedEx Cup or something.
Yep,
that's my take on it.
I'm right there with you.
Let's get to the next batch of golfers. I do want to say real quick, obviously, you see it on the screen. It's going to stay on the screen. If you are interested in checking out the Sims for PGA, it's there. The link is below. Again, we have talked about this so much about just the progression of DFS. There was a time where ownership projections were the new thing. There was a time where the concept of projections and then optimizers came. And now all that stuff is second nature. Basically, everyone who plays DFS utilizes those things in their process. Sims is like that. This is the beginning of it. You can be early to it, but it's not going away. The tools are too powerful. They are awesome. They're customizable. And the best part, they're simple to use. I am someone that's a hand builder. I always have been. I always will be. And I still use these Sims every single slate now. Part of my process. Check them out. The link is below. No reason not to. My man Jordan threw them in chat. But let's keep going. We're kind of in that upper mid tier now. The 8K range. Keegan and Harris English, Thagala, who you mentioned, Hideki grades out wildly good. I can't wait to hear what you have to say on him. Talk to me about these type of players.
Hi to my buddy Athanasios. Just hi, hello. I know that he's watching here at the moment, and I will say, he's just a phenomenal poker player, WPT stud. But nice. I'm going to be playing Hideki for the first time, maybe in forever. It's probably been over a year since I clicked on his name. Was vehemently against playing him in Hawaii. We got some decent signs there. That's the first time that I've been actually impressed by seeing the combination of off the tee approach around the green. Like everything looked pretty good. Was pretty flat with the putter. Again, a 30th there. It is what it is. It wasn't like you got some kind of massive reward out of it. I was very happy to have 0 there. But as you said, he grades out wildly good. And he's the kind of guy, and this is kind of the way that I think about it. He's the kind of guy who can go out and shoot a 63 or a 64 on a very difficult golf course where other people just don't have that mentality. They don't have that ability. And you look at other guys in this range, like Harris English is going to get a lot of attention. I like Keegan Bradley this week. Thagala, he obviously finished 3rd, I believe, here last season. And Sepp Straka is my boy, so I'm going to be playing him for sure. But like Hideki, I'm actually feeling better about than I was expecting, based on just kind of going through some of the numbers. Has a couple of rounds under his belt. I don't know what you think about it, but like I'm very tempted to play him in single entry, although I'm probably not going to.
Yeah, I like it. So a couple things. One, Hideki plays Farmers every year. Every single year. He's got loads of experience. For him, I think in particular, Shane Lowry comes to mind as well. There are certain players where I do think like rust, they just have to work into the season a little bit. Hideki, it's not to say he can't start. We've seen him in Hawaii do some things. But when he's out of form a little bit, those rounds mean a lot. And then you echoed, and this is definitely tangential, but man, I'll never forget it. Like I saw Hideki tear apart Firestone. Maybe the best round of golf I've ever seen.
Awesome.
The guy can destroy difficult courses. His irons are immaculate. When he putts, his around the green game is underrated. He consistently gains around the green. It's just the putter, and he's used to these greens. He's seen them a ton. He came in 9th last year here. He gained 5.7 strokes with that putter. He's had a 3rd here. I like the spot. The Sims like him. I like him. I'm certainly not going to start with him. That's way too low, but he's an easy second man in if you attach to one of the 10K golfers.
Yeah, I think what I'm debating, because I'm going to play Sepp Straka. I know that I'm going to have him in my single entry. I just love him, and I think the combination of just ball striking off the tee approach, I think it's all going to be there. And you go into like a 50 round sample size for him, it's not necessarily fair. You trim it down to like 24 rounds here, the most recent form for him. He's just a dude. He is one of these guys. I mean, we saw him show out at the Open Championship last season. He almost shot 59 at the John Deere. Obviously different ball game in both dimensions. Like neither of those are going to really translate here, but the skill set I think is going to be there. I like what I'm seeing from like, I mean, everybody's there, which is the frustrating part. And that's where the Hideki thing, it's like, do I want to pair 2 guys that are 17, 20% owned currently in our projections, and they're probably going to be a little bit higher owned in single entry? I'm going to be trimming Eric Cole, that 20%. I'm going to be trimming the 21% Harris English, and I'm going to potentially be playing Ludwig at 2.4%. So like, there's still a lot of ways that I can get different with my portfolio, but like, I think this is like the back and forth that I'm having with him for that specific tournament. Like in large field, I'm going to be overweight to Hideki.
When you look at the bottom of the range, because I like that, I'm gonna also probably have a couple mid eights in the pool, maybe even together. But then it gets a little interesting. Rose, Moronk, Daniel Berger, Will Z, guys working back from injury. Bez got a price bump after a really good showing last week. Is there anyone there? I mean, what do you make of Berger and Will Z, two guys that are also working back? Different situation, obviously, with injuries. But is it time to maybe start buying on them?
Yeah, so if you're going to buy Will Z, this is probably the week to do it, right? Like more difficult golf course, a little
I
bit
would
more
agree.
demanding. If the ball striking shows up, this is also a spot where putting isn't at a premium. You're not on these perfect surfaces that everybody else is making putts, and you're watching him yip it around the yard. I feel as though I'm more in on him than I am Daniel Berger, although I don't think anything you saw from Daniel Berger was disheartening. It was nice to see a made cut, top 40. That's about all you could have really hoped for from Daniel Berger first time out. He got out of the gate hot, but, in those birdie fests, it's hard to really know where you're going to be landing there at the end. But hard to really use any data points for Daniel Berger other than, hey, he was really, really good once upon a time. We all know that it was with the irons that he really dominated. Had a pretty decent around the green game as well. But, whether it was Colonial, whether it was some of these other tracks, that's where you really saw Daniel Berger shine. A little bit different beast here. I feel as though I'm going to be out on him. Will Z, I want to talk myself into a little bit, but Bez, give the people the Bez talk because I mean you're obviously the whisperer. Are we running it back?
So, yeah, first of all, the thing that makes it a little easier for me with Daniel Berger is I don't like him at this course to begin with.
Oh, okay.
And so like I'm just not huge on farmers for him in general.
Yeah.
So not as big a deal. I think Will Z is the more interesting of the two. Now, Bez, this is where it gets tricky. This is the age old, like, why would you not want to play a guy who's playing extremely well? But playing extremely well, his price has risen. Was that just kind of an outlier, those easier courses? I think the true answer is somewhere in the middle. Again, looking at the Sims, you don't have anything great there. Will Z certainly grades out better, and I do side to Will Z over Bez. I might have some just because I do want to buy, and he's been a long-term buy for me. But I think this is probably closer to where he should be. And a guy like Shane Lowry is $100 cheaper than him. That's pretty interesting to me. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, Shane Lowry, I played last week. It was kind of meh. He missed the cut. He played really poorly, and then all of a sudden he tried to make that cut by finishing, I believe, birdie hole out eagle, which was pretty wild to watch. I was like, wait, am I going to get that one through? Because there was a lineup that I had that needed him to make the cut. It did not make the cut, but either way, I'm probably going to be playing some Justin Rose. I'm not a big Justin Rose in the year of our Lord 2024 guy, but I mean, this is just a golf course where there's some undeniable rapport that he has with it. And he just plots it around so well in some of these tracks that Justin Rose feels like an automatic buy at any ownership that's single digits. And that's currently where it's at right now. Won't play him in single entry either for what it's worth, but feel pretty good about him being a large field target. Bez, yeah, I'm having a tough time getting there this week. I played a little bit for you, did not end up betting him, thank God, because then I would be depressed right now too. But I think you're going to be hitting one of these sooner rather than later. I'm just going to kind of listen to you when it comes to a guy like Bez, mainly because we know he can get it going with the putter. We know that he's somebody that can get really, really streaky in that department with the irons too. But like the off the tee game, if I'm going to be out on like an Eric Cole and just say, oh man, this is going to be demanding, you hit in the rough a couple of times, like he kind of falls into that bucket where it's just like, for me, I'm not going to be playing an Eric Cole and I'm probably not going to be playing a Bez just purely because if you're hitting at 295 in the rough and other guys are hitting at 320 down the pipe and it's wet and it's more difficult and it's a more premium ball striking week, probably going to just write off the guys that don't have that capability.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he can navigate. He's shown the ability to do some of that on tough courses, but I still think, all in all, there are some better spots for him. So I'm gonna side more towards Lowry, Will Z, and Rose in that. But I want to work down. We're kind of still in the mid range, but in the 7K range. Luke List grades out very well. Jaeger's on the Eric Cole train of like 20 straight made cuts, very impressive stuff. Svensson, Hostler, Ryan Fox is a name that has come up who's shown in majors and whatnot that he's there. What do you make in the upper sevens?
I'm so in on Steven Jaeger this week. It's ridiculous. Okay. So I did kind of a deep dive on him yesterday because I couldn't believe when you just kind of look at the modeling, and obviously we use the same place when we look at specific guys, and you're able to do some really cool stuff over at that site now as well. So shout out to the guys who've done some awesome stuff there. But I was a little bit thrown off the fact that he was like top 20 in strokes gained off the tee, because if you do recall doing these shows together back in 2022, I bought in pretty heavy during the fall swing as he got his tour card. He had some of the best around the green game that you could ever see in your entire life coming through the Korn Ferry Tour ranks into early PGA Tour form. And it's like, all right, if he has that off the tee form, it'd be great. He had lost strokes in 16 straight events in 2022 off the tee.
Man. That's insane.
This season, or coming off the John Deere from last season, he has gained in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 consecutive tournaments with strokes gain data. And something tells me the other two, the American Express, again, I don't take anything away from that, but like, he has been awesome in that regard. And you add that around the green element to it, I think that's kind of like my true pairings with a lot of these guys. Like Jaeger goes so well with Minwoo. Like those are the kind of guys I'm finding, these like tiny little mini pairings that I'm just going to put together in more lineups or build out in single entry. And I just keep gravitating towards him because that skill set specifically, I think he's going to have a really, really good week. I considered making him my hot take. I have somebody else for that this week, try to run that back, but I'm kind of in love with Steven Jaeger this week, and I don't think I've clicked on that name forever.
Yeah, I mean, he's someone that obviously in the outright market hasn't broken through yet, but there's so much nuance to that. And here at 7,800, if he kind of keeps doing what he's doing, he's really going to continue to pay dividends in these lineups, even if it's not breaking through. Could he do that? Sure. No doubt. I got to check in on, you are the Bo Hospler whisperer. This is your guy. Can he survive? He's another one. He's got all the skills at times, but off the tee, sometimes with the irons, it's pretty loose. Is this a track you want to take a shot at?
Absolutely. Like,
okay.
This is the Bo Hospler week. So I bet Bo Hospler. I'm going to probably, I'm going to play a lot of Bo Hospler this week. Again, this is just the typical, he's going to be one of the best around the green players, period, on the PGA Tour from now until the day that he dies. He is that good. You play with him and he gets up and down out of trash cans. He adds the driving element to it. He's been positive in that regard throughout his PGA Tour tenure as well. The irons can be broken from time to time, but again, even though it's smaller surfaces here, par is at a premium, and that skill set of off the tee to try to give yourself better looks, and then adding the around the green portfolio, and then the putter has been pretty decent. Had the second at the Zozo during the fall. I think you bet him that week too. Was that another second you had on your card?
Yeah, but I've been peppering the
so proud of you.
The runner-up market for quite a while. That's why they got top fives were invented. Not that I take advantage of them, but that's why they did invent those.
Well, Bo Hospler is going to a top 10 for the people here this week. So fire that one up, put that on your betting card.
There you have it. And again, it's a pretty wide open range. Looking at the Sims, you're getting kind of a mixed bag here. No one jumps off the page, which I like. I think it's going to be pretty flat. There will be ownership, no doubt about it. I'm going to make a case for Svensson. He's another guy that I think that is Farmer's the ideal situation for him. Honestly, I'm not sure. I think he's more of an easy course type guy, but the ball striking has been there consistently. The form has been there consistently. And I think he's just kind of a better player than he was. He's played this event 3 times. He was 35th in 2019. Nothing really since then in terms of positive results, but I'm still willing to go to him. I agree that Hostler's in play as well. What do you make though of Bhatia, Ryan Fox? I mean, these type of players in that it's in the same price range, very different skill sets.
Yeah, different skill sets. I mean, once upon a time, you were the Griot whisperer, so I guess you'll kind of speak to that one a little bit. Can get crazy hot with a putter. That is kind of a fun element that he's added to his repertoire. He's 12th in strokes gained putting over his last 50 rounds. That seems made up. What a time
to be alive.
That seems absolutely made up amongst this field. But anyway, Sunny again. This guy just keeps popping every single freaking week in a model, and I don't know why, but probably won't get there this week, even though he's 1% owned. Billy Horschel, I can't really do with the off the tee game. I mean, for me, it's Aaron Rye in this range. Okay. I'm going to be getting to some $7,400 Aaron Rye. Ryan Fox doesn't really have it for me. Yeah, he can be good off the tee, but pretty much everything else has been lackluster for the last 4 to 6 months. Obviously, there's no real recent form to peg with him, so I'm not going to go crazy with anything. It's been a while since we've seen him I don't think I'm going to be buying in there whatsoever. Adam Schenk is going to be popular. This we get to like 7,300. I think that's going to be somebody else that you kind of have to make some decisions on. And I'm just kind of gravitating towards Davis Thompson down here, 7,200, but I don't really have any strong leans anywhere outside of Aaron Raya here in like the low sevens.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think the nice thing about this range is that you don't need to get crazy with the state. Like, yes, there are going to be some people, and again, our ownership, of course, right into the tools and whatnot. I, I don't think it's going to be crazy decision points, though. You're just choosing best available for a lot of these. You have a number of pivots. Uh, yeah, I'll give a 2 cent spiel about Griot.
Yeah.
He's obviously found something with the putter in the last year. There's no doubt about it. Some of that has come at the expense of the irons. I know it always kind of works like that, which is ironic in some ways. But if they sync up, it's really an opportunity for him. I do worry that he just gets eaten alive around the green at times in a place like this, but I think it's fine. I'm a little more skeptical of a guy like Ryo Hashatuni, who's been fantastic, but I think like when you go from birdie fests to this, it's a big question for guys that I don't know a lot about. So I'll side with a guy like Griot, like Pendrith. He's right there as well, 7,400.
Yeah, just to round out the loop on that. I mean, it's easy to go to easy golf courses and see a guy who can shoot 25 under over in Asia, and then all of a sudden comes over and has some success in Hawaii. A lot of Asian guys have had success coming over there from the Asian tour, having some great outings over at both the Sony. If they get to the Century from time to time, that's been a thing as well. But I don't really think you need to go out of your way to roster a 1% guy at 7,500 because the opportunity cost, like, he would really have to put it up in a way where, I mean, he hasn't even done the kind of outing that would really burn you at this kind of ownership. 30th and 11th. Yeah, you'd be pretty darn happy to have him there at 11th, but I think there's going to be somebody else that pops here in this range. And so give me pretty much everybody else there. I think there's going to be times to buy on him in the future. He seems like he's a pretty darn good player, but like, don't get carried away thinking, oh, he's only 1%. I need to jam him in this spot, mainly because like Adam Schenk is kind of a more known quantity. And he's like 0.1%. That's not accurate, but like we're going to get Adam Schenk or like Taylor Moore or guys that we just know more about, more known quantities and kind of have a better idea of their skill set at that kind of an ownership. So for me, don't go crazy just because of somebody's current form.
Yep. Again, that's where I think early season recent form can be very misleading. It's, oh, this guy's playing great. He's just going to keep playing great. That is not how it works whatsoever. Last couple guys in the sevens, then we'll talk some salary savers, talk about what else is going on in the industry. But you've got guys like Justin Sue, Bjork, Detry, KH Lee, Eckroat, another one of your guys, Gary Woodland, Pavone. I mean, just again, mixed bag open season of who you could target here.
You're a little bit confused that nobody wants to play KH Lee this week?
DPC Lee is normally not in my lineups, but the guy has just been out, honestly, very impressive. He's made 6 straight cuts going back. I'm talking swing season. He was 25th last week.
I like KH Lee a lot. I mean, they're around the green game. That's kind of the high point of his golf game. He's pretty flat, but relative to other guys in this range, it's like, okay, like I'll take KH Lee. I'm just a little bit confused that nobody wants to play him, considering he's had some events here, looked pretty good. The form's been all right. Everybody wants to play Chesson Hadley, and I do not think Chesson Hadley is a guy that you want necessarily on this golf course. Do you?
So he's someone that he's such a fascinating evaluation because when the conditions are soft potentially and it becomes target practice, when he's on, Chesson Hadley can go low. There's no doubt about that. But he's so much more of like this is a joke course. Let's shoot 6. Like I worry about him. His around the green game is just weak. It's always been weak. It's not a strength. It's not going to be a strength. So he puts tremendous strain on his irons. And I do think farmers will test that. If you don't believe me, just look at the course history for Chesson Hadley. 4 straight missed cuts at the Farmers. I don't think that that's a coincidence.
Yeah, and just getting ownership, I don't get it. There are just some interesting reads here down here. We talked about Wilsey. We talked about Daniel Berger. Are we going to be playing any Gary Woodland? Because out of the 3, this feels like a time where if Gary Woodland were to pop, if we were to find something, I mean, his ball striking alone, I know he can hit those blazing 2-irons, probably doesn't have a ton of utility if it's super wet, but like, oh, Gary, I want to play him down here because nobody else, again, there's no opportunity cost here. Nobody's getting rostered. Like Matt Wallace might get some attention later, but I'm not going to probably get there. I mean, do we buy into an unknown Gary Woodland? Because this would be a track that you would otherwise want to be there if you hadn't had him be off for a year.
Yeah, I get it. I'm still a little more on the wait and see.
Okay.
It is an open range that does help. Like if I really need someone there, but I worry about, and the thing I want to point out with Gary Woodland, I do think he's a tough evaluation even for tools because we just don't, it's such an unquantifiable variable about being off and just knowing his skill set and his data make him a great play at this price point. But is he that guy right now? I tend to think probably not. So it is a little scary. There's just not much else there though. Like you mentioned Matt Wallace, SH Kim is there. Not going to be popular, but just another guy that I think belongs in the conversation. Give me a 30 seconds on Ekro. We're contractually obligated for you to talk about your boy.
I absolutely love my boy. How could you not like everything that you've seen from him? I've said it constantly. Out of Oklahoma State, you know, I know a lot of people in Florida, California from my college golf days, and they talked about how solid and put together this kid is right from the get-go. Gonna fall more into like the grinder category eventually, but like off the tee, so strong, 26th. We're talking about a $7,100 golfer that has the skill set, the best of the skill set. I mean, it's him and SH Kim. Like those are the two guys down here that have the best off the tee game and the best off the tee portfolio. Vincent Norman, once we get into the 6Ks, I'm actually interested in. But Austin Eckroat is going to just be one of those guys who puts the ball in the hole in some of these difficult spots. And now we've seen him start to shoot out in shootouts, like 8th at the RSM, 25th at the American Express. I like him more in difficult tracks like this. 10th at the US Open, 2nd at the AT&T. Byron Nelson isn't the best comp, but like there are so many of these spots where I just think Austin Eckroat brings such a strong off the tee game. 3.1 and 2.6 in the last two that we've seen with strokes gain data. That is the real bright spot in his golf game. And to know that I'm finally getting the best of his skill set on a difficult track, I mean, this is the auto buy for me.
Fair enough. Again, and this is going to be, depending on how aggressive you are up top, it'll determine if you can last man in a guy like that, or you're going to have to go to the sixes. My guess for majority of lineups, it's not a ton of value out there. You're going to have to dip a little bit. And let's talk about that before we do, though. I do want to mention, you know, if, like I said, the winners of the PGA Tour these days are like 600 to 1 every week. It's really just outrageous, some of these prices. And we're getting to those guys. And if you are betting those guys, you know, first of all, a couple dollars is going to do it. But I would recommend using, you know, bonus bets if you have them. And one place to get bonus bets right now is BetMGM. They've got the bet and get. What does it mean? Yeah, bet 5, get 158 in bonus bets. If you don't play there, the link is below. You sign up. You got to deposit $10. Bet it. Bet $5. Win or lose, it doesn't matter. You're getting 158 in bonus bets. What you use that on is up to you. Bet the football games. Bet college basketball. Bet PGA. It does not matter, but it is an opportunity, and you get access to BetMGM. Me and Eric are both on our Discord dropping bets all the time, and sometimes the best line happens to be there. You save yourself a bunch of money by having access to it. You got to be 21 plus. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. But think about taking advantage, even if it's a small balance, of getting that boost and getting $158 in bonus bets. You mentioned Vincent Norman. He kicks off the 6K range. You've got Grayson Sigg there as well. Bobby Mack is perpetually 6,800. Semikawa, Lanto, a litany of names. Who stood out to you?
Yeah, so 44th last year at the Farmers, Vincent Norman. So he's at least been out here, seen the track, and didn't completely suck. That's a plus. His best part of his golf game, even though it hasn't been so far this season, Vincent Norman is a off the tee specialist, and I look at him at 6,900. Not completely zero in some regards with the irons and around the green game. The putter, you know, you're running into a buzzsaw a lot of the time, but like you compare him to identically priced Maverick McNeely, who generally is one of my guys. He's not one of my guys this week. There's just no way that I'm going to play him relative to like Vincent Norman, knowing that there's such a demand on the ball striking. So I'm going to be clicking on him. I think Bobby Mack, this is now the week, like grinder golf course a little bit more. Like I think I'm pretty excited about that. And then a blind backing of Cameron Champ. Luke List obviously came out of obscurity there, and now he's crazy popular here this week. He's been in better form, but like Cameron Champ could be one of those guys to buy on a little bit of a dip as well. He's kind of been floundering on the PGA Tour. We know how much crazy talent he has. But the American Express, Birdie Fest, it was not pretty last week. I mean, just absolute dunce cap stuff. But off the tee, he gained 4.4 and missed the cut at the Sony. If he gains 4.4 off the tee, he's making a cut here because everything else, it would take the apocalypse to really kind of like gain 4.4 and still not make this cut. And he had been positive with the putter in 3 of 4 leading up to it. So if you're playing the Luke List, if you're going strong off the tee for some of your paired skill sets, God, do I kind of like Cameron Champ as that 6,800 guy.
Yeah, the fascinating thing, there are multiple players that fit exactly what you're talking about with the same skill set and bad form. Johnny Vegas is right there.
Yep.
Schmid is right there. Those guys are bombers off the tee, the same thing. And then none of them have made a cut at all. So you can, I'm not saying link them all up, but you can choose that type of player in that type of range. And if you do gain with off the tee, it could carry you a lot further this week. I want to bring up one name that I don't know if I've ever mentioned him on a show, honestly. And that's why I'm asking you, because God knows I don't know a lot about Chan Kim.
Oh, yeah.
This is a guy, again, got some talent, no doubt about it. 14th at Amex, and that broke a string of no form, something or nothing, as we head into this week.
He walks goofy as fuck for what it's worth. It's really funny to watch.
That's the information.
Yeah. It's like he's just like the happiest guy just walking around. But Chan Kim, yeah, he is an off the tee guy. I mean, that's the easiest way to put it. Everything else is pretty broken down. The putter is one of the worst on the PGA Tour, but
fun.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, if you're going to play guys like that, this is the week where it's neutralized, where good putters are going to have Poe and it's going to bounce and do whatever else. If Chan Kim just can kind of streak it together, that's kind of it. I'm probably going to be getting to a little of Carson Young here. I know last week doesn't really matter to me. It's not that he played well last week because he did 17th there, but the week before it at the Sony, he missed the cut doing everything well except for putting. You do everything well except for putting, and I'm probably going to buy low on you on just about any situation like this. Nice to not have the stroke gain data, and obviously there's no ownership coming into anybody down here, so I'm going to be playing him. Vincent Whaley's the only guy getting any ownership in these high 6 range, 6,800 he's at. Kind of prefer just straight up going to him, going to Gim, the Gim Reaper. I think this is a good week for him to add to the portfolio. Just another off the tee guy. Just don't play the off the tee drinking game listening through the show again. But Carson Young, I'm going to be a buy on.
How low are you looking to? We've mentioned some guys at 67.
Got her up, baby.
Got her up is 65. How low are you looking to go?
I'm looking at my lineups here because I built out. I'm not playing 150, but I'm building out 150. I'm sorting some stuff. I have one share of Pearson Cootie, but that's not going to happen. That would get automatically vetoed. Let's see. 6,500. Yeah, look, Chris Gotterup is frustrating. There was some obvious form right from the get-go. Sometimes there's guys like Michael Kim. It just takes them a couple of years to really get it going. But, I mean, shit, he played well during the Corn Ferry Swing, or at periods of time. The NBS Invitational, good little track, 4th there, tied 5th later on in the season. He's getting some of these starts. The American Express, he shot 77 the first round, backed it up, 68, 66. Like, Chris Gotterup has game, and it's all going to be off the tee. That is the thing that he was kind of coming out of Oklahoma. That was the calling card. And I think 6,500 is probably the lowest that I'm going to go. I'm probably going to have a share or two of him, and that's going to be it. I don't see anything I need to have 6,500 or down unless you correct me.
No, not at all. I'm not going to correct you. I think that more often than not, you don't want to go down there. Again, I still think
Michael Block's playing.
Michael, yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to avoid. Nick Watney's playing. There's some names and not names in a good way as we get to the lower ranges. I think for stuff like that, first of all, when I run my sims and everything gets updated, there's a guy that stands out, sure. But as you mentioned, the most important thing, you don't need a ton of ownership on any of these guys. There's not going to be any popularity in the low 6s. That's just not how it works. Again, these tools are there, whether you're using Lineup Generator or the Sims, to kind of identify that. I think we did a pretty good job here. Do you have any final thoughts before we get into a hot take and we bounce on out of here?
No, I mean, this is a really good week to pair skill sets. Like,
Yes.
I haven't done it as much this week or at the beginning of the season because you get different draws, you get different courses, you get different tee times, you get a lot of this stuff. You get an opportunity to either blindly, get some draw where maybe, hey, it's playing really, really wet and you want to play the South course the first time out and then it hardens up on Friday. You could do some stuff where you blindly do that. But more so, I am really being specific about skill set pairings. I am pairing Minwoo Lee with some other great off the tee around the green type specialists because if the approach is not as necessary as what it seems like it has over the last couple of years, like you still have the winners who end up positive in approach, Max Homa, Justin Rose. These are guys that are going to still be gaining with the irons, but like overall, as you're putting together 6 golfers, I want to have skill set pairings more so this week at a difficult course than on most weeks.
Fair enough. Yeah, I do think that matters, and it's something I've always advocated for. More on difficult tracks. All right, it is time. It's been a fun time so far with this little segment. Let's get to hot takes for the Farmers Insurance Open here. Last week, it couldn't have gone better. You nailed Tom Kim. I mentioned Bez. He came in second. Couldn't get the whole thing, but we will take it. Do you want to lead us off, or would you like me to go?
I'll let you go first. It's nice. I'm actually cheering for somebody this week rather than against Tom Kim last week, although I didn't have to really sweat that one very hard. It was pretty easy.
That was pretty sweat-free. I'm going to go with, and I think there's really 2 guys here, but I'm going to pick one of them. In the mid-range, they both happen to be Canadian as a sleeper.
Oh.
Give me Adam Svensson. Adam Svensson is that guy right now. I like Pendrith as well, but this is a guy, like I said, he's been making a ton of cuts, hasn't missed since last June, but you got the Sony Open, ball striking good, putter flat. Sentry, ball striking good, putter flat. Now, is this his ideal course again? I'm not sure, but the way he's playing, I think his game is evolving. You're looking at a guy with Adam Svensson, pretty good odds here. I'm talking a 7.5 to 1 for a top 10, something like that, north of 100 to 1 if you want to go for it. He is the sleeper this week that I'm going to call has a good week. Adam Svensson as my Farmers Insurance Open sleeper for the betting market.
All right. This is a Will Z week, friends.
Yeah.
I was saving it. I am very convinced that Will Z puts himself in contention this week. We've been waiting for a more difficult golf course, a spot where it puts more of a premium on being off the tee approach, like ball striking extraordinary. And you get on a track where other golfers are going to struggle with the putter as well. And I just have to blindly play Will Z. The talent alone, we've seen him compete at majors. This is a major championship venue for all intents and purposes. And if it's wet, this is a spot where you just want to be early to the party. And I was pretty vehemently against Will Z, Daniel Berger here the last couple of weeks as we've talked through that. We've got some rounds under his belt now. He's getting some of the rust off. And by the time he turns it on, you're just going to be late to the party. You look at some of the betting odds and then you see 4% over on DraftKings.com. Will Z, top 10, book it.
Book it. We got it on the board. Again, if you have any questions at all, at Eric Lindquist, at JazzRaz DFS. We're going to have plenty of content. I have an article already posted. And if you are in our community here at Stokastic, you're in the Discord, say what's up to us. Whether you're on the betting side at OddsShopper, we're here on the DFS side for Stokastic, and really think about the links are below. Taking advantage of what we've got going on with these tools. It can really make the difference. But see what we can do, friends. Again, Wednesday lock. Make sure you put in those lineups. That's why if you're watching this on Wednesday, appreciate that, but you have missed the boat unless it's very early. But for me, for Eric, for Mr. Jordan Klein behind the glass, thanks as always, friends. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the Farmers. Back next week, same time, same place.